Good afternoon, everybody. It's Eddie Webb. We're here at the New Media Lab at Mesa Community College, and we are very, very privileged today to have a governing board member from the Tempe area, right?
Phoenix.
Phoenix. Yeah. Okay. Board member District 5, Dr. Tom Nerini. Thank you so much for being here. We really appreciate your time.
Thank you.
So for our listeners, we do have a small committee of faculty and staff. We found our sweet spot seems to be 13 questions. And we'd like to just talk a little bit about who you are and your background and your path to becoming a board member, maybe your doctoral work. So please tell us a little bit about your academic and or business background.
Okay. Well, yeah, I'm a pretty unlikely board member and actually doctoral recipient. Most of it comes back to Mesa. I graduated from Mesa Community College, and they really saved my academic
What year?
career. I graduated in 1980, and I had been at Phoenix College for a few years and wasn't doing so well. And I transferred over to Mesa, and the staff and the faculty here really kind of helped move me along. One faculty member in particular who I credit with saving my academic career is Professor Torres. He just passed away about a year or so ago.
That's right, yeah.
Because I was, like most students, going to school and working, and I was working in the day and going to school at night. Lost my job. I had an apartment, so I had to get another job. So the other job was at night, and so I had to drop all my classes. So I went to Professor Torres first, and we had to get a signature to drop classes. And he says, what are you doing? Maybe I shouldn't say this because he kind of bent the rules a little bit. I said, well, I have to drop the class because of jobs and things. He says, well, look, I don't teach that class at night. My friend does. So here's what you're going to do. You're going to go to his class. You're going to do his assignments. You're going to take his tests. He's going to give me your grade, and I'm going to post it in my class. So what other classes do you have? And so I told him, he says, yeah, I know that professor. They teach those classes. I'll talk to them for you. And so instead of dropping out, I was able to stay in and graduate. And then from there, I went to NAU, went there for, and that's another strange story, because the only reason I got into NAU is because they forgot to deny me. And so I called him up a week before school started and said, hey, when do I start? He says, well, hold on just a second. And he came back on the phone and he said, well, I'm looking at your transcripts here and I'm sorry, we can't accept you. And I said, but why not? And he says, well, I'm looking at your transcripts here and you have an awful lot of D's. And I said, yes, but if I retake those classes, don't I get the better grade? And he said, well, yeah. And I said, well, you see that D at Phoenix College? Okay, look over at Mesa. It's a B now. See that other D? Okay, now look at Mesa. It's a B. So after about 15 or 20 minutes, he says, yeah, all right, I guess we can come. And so I started. But the best part about it is 4 years later, or 3 years later after I graduated, I had his job. I started working in the admissions office at NAU. And so it was my job to accept and deny students. And then from there, and my job primarily was to do outreach for diversity. And so I did diversity there. I went from there to Eastern Washington University in Spokane and started their diversity outreach program. Did that for a few years, and I thought, Spokane's not cold enough. So I went to upstate New York to a small private school, St. Lawrence University in way upstate New York. And again, doing their diversity outreach there. And it was when I went into my garage one day and I saw 3 shovels, each one for a different type of snow. I thought it's time for me to leave. So from there I went to Western Washington University, and again, doing a lot of the diversity work, a lot of outreach, student support services programs. So my background has been primarily in student affairs. But then when I came back to Arizona about 10 years ago, I started working as a school counselor, because my idea was, if I'm going to be the kind of administrator, the kind of student affairs professional that I want to be, it's been a long time since I was a low-income first-generation student of color. So I thought I need to go back and relearn, what that's all about. Well, that was 10 years ago. And so again, working in the high schools, getting to work with students to prepare them for college, to get, to apply to college, it's given me some really good insight to being a board member, because I'm seeing it from the ground up. I'm in the trenches with the students. I'm in the trenches with the teachers, with the different programs. So instead of, so many board members and administrators are looking at the process from the 30,000 feet, where I'm looking at it from the trenches and trying to go up. So it comes back. I know one of the things is why I got into the board And it's because I did see some of these issues. I did see some of these concerns of students. And I know that, I mean, I was the student what we think of as a typical community college student. I wouldn't have been ready for university right off the bat. I needed to do some maturing. And I see our students and the opportunities that the community college has available for the students is incredible. And I just wanted to make sure that more students have that opportunity, whether they're high school students, making their way in, or returning students, or the workforce development folks, or the non-traditional student. But again, trying to give that different insight to it, and being a graduate of a community college, I think helps give me that perspective.
Yeah, thank you. You've covered our first segment of questions. Your enthusiasm and your perspective is contagious. Thank you.
Thank you,
sir, for being here, for serving the board. I think you are a excellent example of an educator and somebody that we need in those seats. I could not agree with you more. I'm an in trenches guy, and I started my career 26 years ago as a bit of a outcast disruptor, and it looks like I'm going to end it like that as well. But I'm going to keep fighting for students and what the primary purpose of our mission is. So I would like to touch on the third question a little bit more, although you've touched on it already. But your influences, do you find that because of your background and everything that you've just told us, are you a good fit for the board itself, or do you find conflict?
I think I'm a non-traditional fit for the board, but I think it's a good fit. I think it's a perspective that needs to be there. As I think about it, I may be the only board member who's actually a community college graduate.
Wow.
Only one with an associate's degree, and maybe that's been for a while. So actually living the experience, even though that experience was years and years ago,
right.
I think it adds that perspective. So I think it's not traditional, but I think it's a view that needs to be there.
Yeah.
We spend so much time as grown-ups, being in a high school, as grown-ups in general, so much time telling students, here's what you need, instead of looking at it and saying, how can we help? What are the obstacles? What are the things in your way? What are the hindrances? How can help you get over them, around them, or through them?
Yeah.
So,
yeah. You're talking our language, brother. You're talking our language. It is interesting because, I've been saying for a long time, we have to humanize data.
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes administrators and managers get too deep into the system. And I have to always say, the system, it's about people, not the system. It's people. But from their perspective of managing things, I understand what they're talking about, but we have to keep the human being experience, the student at the center of our mission.
Yeah.
I think it brings all the political ideologies together, because I don't think anyone would disagree with that.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm going to get to that question here in a second, but why should a student choose a Maricopa college for their educational experience?
In Arizona and Maricopa in particular, the size of the school, the ability. Research bears this out. Tinto and Mesner and Bean and all these researchers that talk about student retention and student persistence and student success talks about the students who are engaged are going to be more successful. And when you're at a school with 10 or 12,000 students versus 30 or 40,000 students, those opportunities are a lot more abundant. Again, my experience with Professor Torres, and some of the counselors and folks that I had here, that's the reason I succeeded. And then again, with so many of our students, you look at our student population, so many are first generation, so many are low income, and so many therefore have to work.
Right.
And so too many of us, I think, go in with the mindset that here's what the traditional college student is. It's 18 to 24-year-old full-time college student, just knocking it out in 4 years. Where the community college gives those students that opportunity who have to work for their family, who have to help provide for their family, who have to maybe take a little bit longer, maybe don't understand the system well enough, who need that kind of, not hand-holding, but just just that kind of reinforcement of that what they're doing is the right thing, because the imposter syndrome is real, and it's real for our students, and so many of them question whether they belong here to begin with, belong in higher education to begin with. And I think at least a community college gives them that sense that, yeah, this is where I belong. This is what I can do. And so I think there's that. There's not that stigma of I'm being a part-time student where it might be at a university. And so I think it's all of those things, and just the opportunities that they have, whether it's a summer program, doing a study abroad program. It's much easier to do that. To be able to use your job, or to use your skills that you're learning in school to do the internship or the apprenticeship and that sort of thing. And again, then we go back to some of those career and technical education programs that we have that are highly paid. A lot of them are highly paid, shorter terms. They can get into the workforce and get out with a good paying job. And again, so many of our first generation students need that, and they may come in for that, but then they realize that academically they're stronger. That can become more of a different avenue. It could be an associate's degree. It can be a bachelor's degree. It can be a master's degree. Again, my experience here, I remember going to Becky Chavez. She was my advisor here at Mesa. And I remember telling her, Becky, just tell me what I need to get my associate's degree. That's all I want. I've got to do that. And I'm just tired of going to school. And she, in her wonderful way, she said, wait, how old are you? And I says, I'm 21. And she says, well, how old are you going to be when you retire? I said, I don't know. She said, most people retire when they're 65. She says, write those numbers down. Now subtract. So she said, what do you have? And I said, 44. Said, you have 44 years left to work. What's your hurry? And so with that, I was ready to be done with an associate's degree, but because of her, because of the interaction I had with her, I was able to go on and get my bachelor's. And then I was able to get my master's. And then years later, I went back to get my doctorate. But that wasn't what I expected. I expected to just maybe get an associate's and be done with it. I just wanted to, have something. But I think those are the kind of opportunities, the doors that community colleges open. And we want to make sure that, that's accessible for everybody.
Right. And again, you're making our point, right? That this is a human experience and it's about relationships.
Mm-hmm.
I've done that very thing that Dr. Torres did a couple of times for students because I didn't want them to leave the college.
Mm-hmm.
And I hope that the statute of limitations is passed for kindness and compassion and right and understanding and accessibility and all the stuffs that we can work around, because that's I was at ASU for 3 years, UC Davis, and then we talked earlier, I taught in Switzerland, Germany, Italy, France, and landed back here at Mesa because I wanted to teach the student that I am, the zip code that I come from, the struggles that I knew I want. And I would say this is who teaches here as well. Real teachers. Teachers come here to teach because they want to invest in their students. The biggest challenge that I had was learning that a part of my job was to teach our students how to be students, how to organize, how to schedule, how to take notes, how to plan for studying, how to, all of that stuff. We need more folks like you on the board. Yeah, you're talking our language. And you're just ripping through our questions so fast. I don't know what I'm going to... For our listeners, I have a set of 4 or 5 questions in this section. I barely asked one, and Dr. Nerini has just ripped right through all of them because he's speaking from his heart, and he's being authentic, and that's what we need. We need that humanness to what we are trying to do. I'm almost embarrassed to ask you this question now, but the next question was beyond lower cost. What is our most valuable academic program?
Our most valuable academic asset are our staff and faculty, because it's those individuals who make the college, who make the students' experience. The academic, what you learn in the classroom is important, There's no question about that. But it's what you learn outside the classroom that's the real value of a college education. It's those things that you talk about. It's organizing your time. It's organizing your schedule. It's being a critical thinker, a critical reasoner, a critical reader, a critical consumer of information. And even though that happens in the classroom, I mean that's sort of what the learning is couched around. So much of it happens outside the classroom because, and especially with our students who may be working, who may be taking care of their kids, taking care of their parents, taking care of other individuals. If they can master that, if they can master their time, which we can help them do, then and see things critically, then everything else just falls into place a lot more.
That's
And
right.
and I think that's kind of the learning that we tend to skip over. And you're right. We don't in the high schools we don't teach time management. We don't teach those kind of study skills that are needed. When I talk to the students, I said, what are the differences between high school and college? What's the work do you do at home? It's homework, right? You have to turn in your assignment and get it done. What's the work you have to do in college after class? It's studying, and they're not the same. Um, so, and I always ask the question to the students. I said, there's three questions I have to see if you're prepared for college, see if you have the skills necessary for college. I said, can you read? Can you write? Can you tell time? You have all the skills necessary to be successful in college. Because college is reading, writing your papers, writing your tests, and turning everything in on time. So you have the skills. And I think that's what so many students need to hear is that you have the skills. And we have the resources. We have the compassionate teachers. We have the compassionate professors, the student affairs people that are there to help the students. We just have to get them into the door and give them aid them with the confidence that they need to do what they're capable of doing.
Yeah, that's the mirror. That's why teachers teach.
Mhm.
Right? I mean, we all know we're not going to get wealthy in terms of dollar bills, but when you have the experience of sitting with a young person and you teach them and you see the light come on and you convince them of their own potential, there isn't any, that's the addiction,
Yep.
right?
Yep.
That's what it's all about is like, you can't wait to get to work because, and what we do here in the New Media Lab is we have, you know, we're trying to modernize the language arts in a way that meets the toolkit and the skills that our young people already have, technology, video, audio, right? And moving those expressions into a modern platform. And when you see how gifted students are, right, that normally if they were just kind of doing this traditional read a novel, take 100 question,
Mhm.
stuff like you and I probably grew up with, but to expand that and give them different tools to express themselves, we tapped into, because I'm a global learner. When I was getting my bachelor's degree, I kept flunking these tests. And I had a sociology professor, Wally Zahn, and a mathematics teacher. I can't remember her name, Ross, I believe. But anyway, they asked me if I'd take part in a study they were doing. They're like, you're really smart. You read, you do all the work. But I could never answer the questions, A, B, C, or D and C, or, I don't know. I mean, I'm a tribal member. I'm very influenced through our ceremonies. And I was having a hard time, kind of like, to me, everything seemed possible, Anyway, they did these tests for me. And they said, instead of taking a written exam, you're going to do an oral exam. And they set up like 4 people and they would give me an exam. And they would ask these questions and then have me go to the board and explain the answer. And I would get A's. And that was my first experience that, well, maybe, being told maybe, there's a learning disability or something going on here. I figured, I early on, I realized, well, I don't have a learning disability. You have a teaching disability. And, the visual arts just changed my whole life. I could express myself in a way.
Yeah.
And that's what I find so many global learners here at the community college. And it's just about giving them that opportunity to tap into their potential. It's so exciting.
You're right. When you look at the historical cultural background of our people and the oral tradition that we have,
Yeah.
There is that. We are, we share our stories orally and not written as much. And so, you're right. There's different types of learning. There's just different types of demonstrating what you've learned, and we need to be more aware of that.
Right.
So,
Yeah. It's, and that kind of leads into some of this next area I want to get into. Has legislative statutes restricted us as a district to receive outside funding like ASU? So ASU got rid of a lot of restrictions by not taking taxpayer money, but that's responsible for 70% of our income. So we have an accountability thing. Are we losing out on some of that? Or can we still get money directly from corporations and develop projects with them? Or is there legal issues we have to always be mindful of?
well, I'm aware of, different grants and things that are out there. There's the FIPSI grants and the federal grants and that sort of thing. But there's also, some of the nonprofits, the Bill and Melinda Gates and all those kind of different grants that we need to probably start looking at more. The problem we get into with some of these grants and some of these monies is that they're really restricted in how they can be spent.
Right.
And that's where we have to be more creative with our budgeting, so that if we can get funding for this, can we use what was spent on that on this?
Right.
And so I think we just need to be more creative with that and more aggressive in some of those grants. And how do we get those grants? And again, I'm not sure how the donation versus grant business works, but if we can identify more unrestricted funds so that we can fund those programs that we know work. Yeah, and just again, this was just a discussion I was having earlier today. When it comes to student retention, when it comes to student success, we know that academic advising is critical. We know that making those student connections are critical. But and right now, I think our ratio is like for academic advising is like 1 to 1,100. It's just incredible. But we know those are the individuals who make the difference, because those are usually the first contacts the student have.
Right.
And I always, when I was working in student affairs, it wasn't about going to the student services office. It was go see Nerini or go see Becky or go see, Janice. It wasn't the office you were going to. It was the individual you were going to. But so many of those positions are entry level, and we don't have enough of them. We need to make those student connections. We need to make sure that students have that opportunity to connect with another human, because again, research after research after research shows that when they do that, when students do that, they're more likely to succeed. They're more likely to continue.
Yeah.
And it's just unfortunate that we don't value those kind of individuals as much as we should. Those entry level people, the people who answer the phone,
Right.
they're fantastic. Because again, as a counselor, I'll call because I'm having issues with the students, and I never tell them that I'm a board member. It's just, hi, this is, Tom Nerini from Franklin High School. I'm calling about a student. But it didn't matter. It doesn't matter. The people who answer the phone treat me as well as they would if I had told them that I was a board member. They're very kind, very considerate, very helpful.
When you say we don't value them, who are you talking about? Because we value them.
Oh, yeah.
I know I value.
Yeah,
Are you
yeah,
talking
yeah.
about like salary?
Yeah, budget wise, we're not valuing them.
Okay.
We're not. First of all, we don't have enough of them. And then
Right.
we're not valuing enough to help them progress through the leadership or progress through the system. We just can't, they're there, and then they get great experience, and then they may peel off to do something else or go someplace else.
Oh.
So the individuals, we value them, but I think in the budget cycle, we're not valuing them I think we should.
Oh, okay.
So,
Yeah, because I know we've trained a lot of people for other institutions
Yeah.
to do great work.
Yeah.
Right. Because they're like, hey, I've reached the top here, and I want to experience the American dream too.
Yeah.
And because most of the people in those positions are the students that come from our neighborhoods,
yeah.
right? And they grow into those things.
Yeah.
All right. You, sir, gave a very impassioned speech at the end of the last governing board meeting about DEI. What is your view of the role of community college in advancing diversity, equity, inclusion, and I'm going to include what's coming out of the chancellor's office, democracy and civility?
Mm-hmm. Well, one of the things again, when I worked at St. Lawrence University, very, very selective school, and I was working with low-income first-generation students getting into college. One of the jobs that any institution has is to prepare our students for the real world. And as we look around, demographics will show us that the real world is looking more and more diverse. And as I tell these students, I don't care how good a professor is, how smart they are, how many books they've read, how many papers they've written, they're never going to know what it's like to be a Latina from South Phoenix, right? You're the expert. You need to, they're not giving you anything. You're being the expert to help the other students learn how to deal in a diverse world. And so as a role, we have to help prepare our students for the real world. And if the real world is more and more diverse, we need to have our student population represent that. We need our faculty to represent that. We need our staff to represent that so that we can better prepare all of our students for what the real world is looking like. And we need to do it civilly. We need to have the civil conversations. We need to have the civil engagement. We need to have the discussion. It's hard. Those discussions are hard. But we need to make sure that the spaces are safe. They're not confrontational. They're based in fact, and they're based in research. But yes, our job is to prepare students for the real world. And if the real world is more diverse, we need to be more diverse, and we need to talk about it and understand that we are where we are, and we got here because of something, because of a series of events, and we need to respect that. But where do we want to go? And so respecting the past, respecting who we are in the present, and respecting where we want to be in the future, we need to have that kind of civil engagement, that kind of diversity, that kind of conversations. So
yeah, and I think because of the way things are so politically charged around science and academia, these issues, something compelled you to make this. I listened to your statements. They were very, very powerful. We have in the country this attack on critical race theory, and I don't think people are actually attacking critical race theory because I don't think they know what it is, but they're attacking what they're being told about critical race theory. And so that is a part of our job. In my current classes, students are doing a project on that. Should critical race theory be taught in higher ed? But the first question is, well, what is it? It's a framework.
Yeah.
It's a way to civilly talk about our country's history, post, pre, contemporary history without being, destructive. It's a way to quantify these questions and examine them. Because I require my 101 students and 102 students to refer to themselves as emerging scholars. And that's what we're going to do. We're going to teach critical thinking, critical analysis. We're going to teach how to find recommendations and findings in a way that is exploratory and not conclusive. And I think that's, again, the magic of what we do, right?
Yeah.
Is to teach thought. And I was telling Keegan earlier, I like to read 2 opposing books at a time. So I'm finishing up Thomas Jefferson's The Art of Power, and I just finished John Lewis's This Truth is Marching On. And I had, it's amazing when you think about historically, it was a very godly thing for a person like Thomas Jefferson to own human beings, right?
Mm-hmm.
Not only did they do all the work, then as later as we push down into the Civil War, you have human beings. I've decided I'm going to try not to use the word slave anymore. Human beings, who are doing all the work, but as Toni Morrison wrote in her The Bluest Eye, are labeled as lazy and ignorant. right? And so young people have to have a way to talk about that without wanting to burn the house down.
Mhm.
And critical race theory, I mean, I also say if you're in real estate and you want to sell a house, right? So you're looking at your marketing, that's called critical finance theory. No need to get alarmed
Mhm.
or
Mhm.
worked up, right? And it's this notion that you have to explain this, to our community, that how important diversity is and put it in a context that in and of itself is critical race theory, right?
Mhm.
And I think what people wanted to ask you about that is has this focus around civic education as a baseline, establishing a good sense of democracy. Does that line up with job training and vocational preparedness?
Yeah, I think so, because now with technology has replaced a lot of the jobs that we used to do as humans, right? And so to be able to think things through, to puzzle things out and not be a robot is critically important. And I think with going back to critical race theory, I think so many people haven't really dissected the words and really dissected what we're talking about. And just because you're critical of something doesn't mean you have to hate it. And the example I give is that if you're married, have you ever had an argument with your spouse because of something he said or something that she did or some thought that they may have expressed that hurt your feelings? Then you're critical of them. You still love them, but you're critical of them. You're critical of that action, you're critical of that thought, you're critical of whatever, but you can still love them and you can still grow from that. Just like as we are critical of our past and we're critical of the things that happened in our history. Yes, slavery was wrong. Yes, the internment camps were wrong.
And
Uh,
Indian genocide.
Indians genocide, the boarding schools, all that was wrong. And you're darn right I'm critical about that. But that doesn't mean I love the country less. That if I can grow from that, if we can become a better country because of that, then isn't that better for everybody?
Yeah.
So, yeah, you can be critical, take that as a learning experience and move forward with that instead of letting it fester. And so I think that's a need. And to do that, of course, you become a better electrician. You become a better mathematician. You become a better engineer if you can embrace that and you can think about it critically and not just take whatever you read on that last Google search that you did. So, yeah.
Yeah. I didn't come back to teaching until I was 40 years old. And I owned my own business and worked around and have friends that are very successful in business. And I asked them, do you want your employees to have the ability to be critical thinkers, to be creative, to be well educated in culture and and there says, absolutely. I'm dying. That's what we want. That's how we thrive and grow our companies, to have people come in and challenge the status quo, and bend the curve. That's what they're looking for. They're not afraid of that at all, you know. Our next question then becomes what is your understanding of the notion of academic freedom and the professorate's role in academic freedom?
Yeah, I think that's at the very core of education, very core of higher education, especially that professors need to be able to express with facts and data and research. They need to be able to back up their claims, but also be open to the counterpoints. You know, and again, we all had those professors in college, and I had one who said that the slaves should be grateful for being enslaved because they were treated better than the Irish immigrants at the time because they were owned. And they wanted the owners of the slaves wanted to protect their investment. So they would rather spend 15 cents on an Irish immigrant to unload a ship rather than risk breaking the leg of one of their pieces of property. And so they were better taken care of. And he also said that, the Native Americans should be grateful for all that they were given, like smallpox. Somebody spoke up and said, yeah, like smallpox. Thank you very much. But again, using the facts to count. These were his points, and maybe he was doing it just to get a rise out of us. Maybe he was doing that just to get us to think about the other side. But it didn't feel that way.
Yeah.
But it's still. I mean, because the class and some of us in the class were able to look at it critically and question that. And, again, I wrote an 11-page paper that he gave me an A on, but he said it was because of the work and not the content, having to do with the Mexican-American War and who fought that, and tried to explain to him it was because of slavery, and that's why Texas left, because Mexico outlawed slavery. But anyway, he didn't buy into that, but he did give me the A for the effort.
Keeping it real here with Dr. Nerini. One of the decisions I made to continue in school, a lot of people are our tribal members and elders convinced me that I needed to go back, to college, because I just didn't understand why. I didn't get it. It's like, that's for those kids. I pour concrete and swing a hammer and make money. Why do I need to go to school, right? And they would say, well, this is way back now. We're talking in the late 70s and 80s. It's like, because we need our young people to learn to explain to our elders what happened, right? So there was this nobility to going to school. And I remember one day thinking, I don't know if I can do this. I'm uncomfortable. I don't fit in, but I had long hair. I used to wear a bandana, and a bunch of my friends are in the movie Dances with Wolves, Rodney, Floyd, Steve, and all those guys. And I was sitting in the class, and my teacher walked in and said, "Hey, did anybody catch the Dances with Wolves?" And everybody raised their hand, and I was just sitting there. And he said, "Yeah, it was pretty cool, to hear a native language." He goes, "But can you imagine how horrible those people must have smelled, how dirty they were?" And I had never been in, I didn't know what to do. I had a daughter that's 6 years old at the time. And I remember I just remember standing up and saying something, and I walked out of the class, and I realized I had to get involved. I had to get involved. And that one moment has been driving me ever since, And I have and I feel that same way for the white, poor coal miner in Virginia, working class people. I think we all make that connection to justice, right? Mm-hmm. And this is why we need to keep talking about these things. So we've sort of established here this sense of the relationship between faculty and students and programs. I have a question here that has been on my mind too. I've been here 21 years. I've seen, I think, between presidents, vice presidents, deans and stuff, I think I've been through 9. And there seems to be this culture of administrators get the job, fall in line, build allies, get a signature project going, and then leave. And I find it very disruptive. And I also see that faculty are starting to have to compete with administrators over programs and funding. And that is something I'm really concerned about, right? Because we've established our product is faculty-student relationships. And that doesn't mean we burn faculty out by teaching class after class after class. It's giving them, they're the innovators, right? Like what we have here. How do you see that? Do you see that our cults sometimes it starts to become more about the ambitions of administrators rather than, I was in a meeting a week or two ago by someone that it seemed like they were kind of trying to be funny that, well, faculty come here and stay for, 25 years. Like that's a bad thing. It's like, no, that's a good thing. We're dedicating our entire lives to our students, to our learning. And you all kind of have this culture where you float in and then move on. And with that, you take things or why you're here. It's a very tough question to ask, but I want to ask it. Is there any sense that the governing board or yourself have around this culture, this kind of mixed culture that we have?
Yeah, I'm not sure about the rest of the board, but I'm a big advocate of growing our own, of having a strong leadership training program so that you get that academic advisor who comes in as an entry-level position, and you work with them and, and give them opportunities for advancement, give them opportunities for leadership, because it's home. You're more likely to stay where you're most comfortable.
Yeah.
And I think in our district, if you do need to move, we've got colleges.
Places.
We've got places to go so that we can still grow our own and keep those roots growing deeper, so that we're not counting on, people floating in and floating out. We get a lot of outstanding administrators from outside, and that's great. But I think we can do a better job of cultivating our own leadership within our own district, giving them more opportunities for leadership roles and leadership learning and that sort of thing. So, I mean, and I know I've talked to the chancellor about it a few times, like, how do we develop our staff and our faculty? So if faculty do want to move into leadership and administrative positions, how do they do it? Because you're not learning that, in your background as a professor. So we need to train them to be, quality leaders and give them that investment in their institution or in the district.
I agree. Yeah, I think there's so many ways we can do that. We can shadow people. We can assign people, reassign people.
Mm-hmm.
We can have faculty sit in on cabinet meetings and learn more with the intent of, like doing internships in a way. Yeah, I hope we do explore that. I think our chancellor, I kind of always have thought our chancellors were great. I thought Rufus was great. I thought Maria was great. I think Stephen Gonzalez, he comes from where we come from, man.
Yeah.
He's a smart guy, but I've also learned he's tough too, man.
Mm-hmm.
He ain't toiling out any favors. He make you work for it, and I really like that. The mayor of Mesa gave ASU $55 million to build a building to teach what we're trying to teach in here, this modernization of digital life. How come Mesa Community College didn't get that money?
It's a good question.
Thank you.
Yeah. Well, I do know the mayor of Mesa with the Promise program has helped the Mesa students, here at MCC to get free education. But you're right. I mean, you look at, I don't want to diss ASU in any way,
right?
But you look at the clientele that we're serving. What percentage of our students are out of state versus what percentage of ASU students are out of state? Where's the benefit going with those kind of investments? Sure, these are great kids and great students, and they may, a lot of them may end up staying here. But this is our community, and that's the part that I think we so often forget about our name. We are the community college, and we need to keep that in the forefront, and we need to make sure that other people keep that in the forefront. Mesa Mayor needs to keep that in the forefront of his thoughts with this sort of thing. We are part of the community.
Yeah, it took me a while. It took me a week, man. I walked around in circles like, how did we miss that opportunity? Why is he not, I really had to settle myself down, because I have no shame when it comes to getting stuff done for our students. I want our students to have a world-class education, and they can get the same education of going to Harvard as right here. Yep. We have that kind of talent. We have faculty committed to that level of scholarship. I mean, the faculty here, the talent pool is so rich and so amazing, and they're so dedicated. I mean, I know we're actually going to have those folks on next week, right? Isn't it? The guy running that whole program is coming over, and we're going to get into it a little bit. We want a partnership and build some articulation, at least at this point, you know, how we can bridge our programs. Because like I said, I started my career as kind of a bit of a disruptor, and I'm probably going to end it like that as well. But I want the new Media Lab work to be a destination for students, not just another program that dried up on the tree of bureaucracy. I want this place to thrive.
I think, and for me, that's one of the goals I have for the district as well, is to make the colleges destinations.
Right.
Right now, too often it's the fallback plan for a lot of students. And we need to make we need to make it the destination. Because of programs like this, because you're choosing to come here because of the quality of the program, the quality of professors. And that's where we don't do a good enough job of getting that out there, getting that word out there that, here's what we do. We're sending a professor to space. It's remarkable what we're doing. We're partnering with Old Dominion to get a bachelor's degree in dental hygiene. The only other place you can do that is at an NAU. And so here we have students who are place bound, and we can do that. We can be that destination, but we aren't doing a good enough job of getting that word out. We're not strong enough at pounding our own drum to say, look at all these great things that we're doing. Because it's not bragging; it's just stating fact that we have some quality professors and quality programs and quality resources that we need to make sure the community knows about.
Yeah. And I think culturally there's a lot of faculty and staff, that it's tough to beat that drum.
Mm-hmm.
And you got to kind of do it, I mean, Keegan, myself, and Paul, the guys that started this here, wrote a book for Adobe that's going to come out in 2 weeks. One of the biggest companies in the world.
Yeah.
They flew us up with our former provost, and we presented at Adobe headquarters. And the executive guy, the top guy, like the Bill Gates guy, came to us and said, like the next day, said that was one of the most powerful presentations they had had.
Nice.
They had more comments from internal and external people that saw our presentation than any presentation that year.
Mm-hmm.
Can you imagine?
Yeah.
We come back and we just sort of drift under the, and for me, because I'm always, thinking about John Trudell used to say, Cornell, Brown, all these Ivy League schools, Harvard and stuff. Not only did they take our culture and our land, now they are mining our minds. They're taking our ideas, they're taking our ancient philosophies about belonging and stuff and starting to reframe it under their, you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
And I'm trying to shut that part of my brain off because it's really not very productive at all. But I'm a kid of the 60s and 70s and raised around all that. But it's a fun journey to work through all of that cool stuff.
Yeah.
Dr. Nerini, thank you, sir.
Thank
for
you.
being here. I feel so energized and inspired by meeting you and your perspective on higher ed. We like to give our guests the last opportunity to say something to our community.
And I know, anybody who's elected will always say something like, I'm honored to be on the board, but I truly am, because it is my way of giving back. It's a way to give back to to what allowed me to get to where I am. And so, I have no other drum to beat except for, what's best for the students and best for the staff and best for the college. And so I'm happy to be here, and I'm happy to help advocate for the staff and the faculty and the students any way I can, because it's just critical. This is the best. And for so many people, it's the only opportunity they have to make the advancement that they need to make, that makes the whole society better because of the quality of the people that we have coming through here. So thank you for letting me be part of it. And, thanks for everybody for letting me be on the board. So I appreciate it.
Yeah. Well, you're definitely an inspiration. I'm going to invite you back when we have our students back in full spring doing a project.
Yeah, good.
So you get to see all of the levels of what we're teaching here, how to run a business, how to act professionally, how to be a team, how to have goals, how to achieve those goals. It's a pretty amazing thing. And again, we want to thank you. In my dad's language, they say, we'll see you again. And remember, everyone, take care of each other out there because we are all we have.